All right, everyone. My name is Junius Currier, and today I'm going to be talking about serendipity and talent acquisition. Exactly what does that mean? My goal today is to really just talk about all of the different opportunities that are available to those that have made it their life's career path to take up talent acquisition, right? So before I jump into the specifics, just kind of introduce myself, like who am I? Why am I qualified to even talk? So I currently support Maximus. We're a federal government contractor, and primarily the teams that I have the privilege to lead are focused on IT. And just a couple bits and pieces of information of me. Love sourcing, have lots of certifications in recruiting and talent acquisition, but more than just the certifications, love the thrill of the hunt. So finding passive, clear talent has been something that I've been able to build a career off of, and always just diving into asking questions, being curious, and all those wonderful things that make people good sourcers and good talent acquisition professionals. Also, if you're in the GovCon space and you want to hear all things GovCon, especially as it relates to talent acquisition, feel free to check me out on YouTube. Myself, Justin Baxter, and Jennifer Jones host a podcast called GovCon Heroes Talent Unleashed. So, more than happy to see you guys check that out and drop some line to communication to me if you have any feedback or comments. So today we're going to talk about career paths, right? We're going to talk about the different kinds of career paths, like recruiting operations, recruitment marketing, sourcing, talent acquisition, talent analytics, talent acquisition skills, adjacent career paths, professional development, and then hopefully, is Dan still on? If so, I know that I think this ends at 4 o'clock, right?
Uh, yep, you have time. So take
Okay.
take
Just
the
want to
take
make
this take the
okay.
time.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Want to make sure that we have time. So just before we dive into all the different kind of career paths and we can certainly get there, I just want to kind of just show like a demonstration of what my kind of career path was. So when I got into talent acquisition, wasn't interested in being in talent acquisition. Got a bachelor's in business, maybe a minor in HR, and then I was actually in higher education. And long story short, I got into talent acquisition really as a foothold to get into HR. But I quickly learned that I was really good at finding talent and really enjoyed talking to people. And I had a lot of skills from previous career paths of being in client facing roles where I had to do a lot of sales, a lot of business development. And those skills paid off quite a bit when it came to talent acquisition. And then ultimately, I identified myself as really enjoying the technical aspect of talent acquisition and working in the cleared space. And so utilizing my aptitude for research, my curious mindset, I was able to use a combination of all those different skills that have allowed me to progress in my career journey. So it's not necessarily a linear path. I was a director for admissions in a college before I became a talent acquisition specialist for a government contractor, but it was known for construction, and develop my skill sets, my sourcing skill sets, and then parlay that into getting in the GovCon for IT recruiting in the clear sector, and then from there move to different career paths. And the next slide is really kind of a visual depiction of what that actually looked like, right? So, when I first joined Colonial Web as a talent acquisition specialist, I went to get air certified because I wanted to learn more about how people found hard to find talent. And then I parlayed those skills and actually made a lot of connections with a lot of people in the sourcing community. Some that pop off the top of my head would be Steve Levy, Derek Zeller, who's no longer with us, Pete Radloff, a lot of people that I met through like Facebook groups. Like there's a Facebook group called Sourcers Who Code. got onto the SourceCon groups, and really just made connections and really got to know people. And through my performance at work, was able to kind of parlay, get upskilled, get into some training, etc. And so here I am, director of technical recruitment for Maximus, all these years later. So now, obviously, today is not about me. It's really just talking about what are the different career paths that are available to those who get into talent acquisition. And there's lots of different career paths, and we're going to kind of talk not just about the career paths, but we're also going to talk about skills as it relates to current skills that are in high in demand within talent acquisition, or adjacent skills that might be applicable to career paths that are maybe outside of talent acquisition for those that are maybe looking for some opportunities to transition. So like if those are interested or have a knack for recruiting operations, right? Like you can become move from being a recruiting coordinator all the way up to a chief human resource officer. Really it depends on, if you want that to be a linear path or if you kind of want to go into different ways, different opportunities, right? I've met many recruiting coordinators and recruiting operations specialists who got into, the actually becoming, full life cycle recruiters or sourcers and took a different career path through those avenues as well. But at the end of the day, I think what's really interesting about talent acquisition as a whole is that there's lots of different ways to get into talent acquisition. It's not just you come in as a recruiting coordinator and you go to be a senior recruiting coordinator, and then you go, like, it can be all over the place. But what's good about knowing all of the different opportunities that are available to you is that you know that you're not stuck, because a lot of the skills that you're learning, even as a recruiting operations person, are going to be relevant to whether if you want to go into recruiting analytics, if you want to go into full life cycle recruiting, or if you want to go into recruitment marketing, or if you want to eventually transition into like human resources, whether it's talent management or whether it's employee relations, becoming a human resource business partner, or going into operations. Maybe you want to be an analyst. So that's one of the really cool things that I really enjoy about talent acquisition. It's really the diversity of the skills that we use can be used for other key roles within talent acquisition or external to talent acquisition. All right. So another path that we commonly see in talent acquisition, recruitment marketing, depending upon the size of your company. But there's quite a bit of leveling within recruitment marketing, and recruitment marketing is super important to recruiting as a whole, right? So whether you are working at a smaller company and you have to be the jack of all trades, you get involved with recruitment marketing, right? Because employer branding is so important to being able to really develop that talent and attraction engine for your organization. So whether you work for an organization that has a very senior built out talent engine capacity, where they have defined, swim lanes where you have a recruitment marketing coordinator or specialist, and maybe a manager of recruitment marketing, all the way up to a VP of recruitment marketing, whatever that looks at your organization. What's really nice about the recruitment marketing, especially in the talent acquisition space, is that all talent acquisition professionals are recruitment marketers. But depending upon the size of your organization that you're working at, there may be a codified, defined lane that specialize in that. And this is just a depiction of what that specific career path could look like depending upon your organization that you're working in. Let's see here. All right. And then one of my favorite career paths, sourcing. So as someone who helped create two sourcing teams in their career to this point, I can tell you that I have a fondness for sourcing, and sourcers contribute quite a bit to the success of organizations. Any GovCon organization that I've had the chance to work at, sourcing has had a huge impact to the ability of that talent acquisition function to be able to deliver for its business. So with that being said, right, like you have your sourcers, you have your senior sourcers and lead sourcers and principal sourcers, and eventually maybe moving up to director of sourcing, VP of recruitment and sourcing, CTO, CHRO, all that career path is laid out for sourcers. The biggest thing about that I think is interesting is understanding that each of these on their own, right? Like this is actually two tracks within one career path, because this is the same thing for full life cycle recruitment, which I'll get into after this slide. You have SMEs in this path. Not everyone wants to be a people manager, right? So, and don't necessarily feel like, okay, well, once I get to being a principal sourcer, does that mean that I don't have any other, does that mean that I'm capped? And the reality is, no, not at all. Like in many cases, depending upon your organizational makeup, someone who's like a principal sourcer is really kind of at the same level as someone who could be a director of sourcing in terms of career path and framework. So I look at it as each of these levels is levels of complexity and capability. The higher up you get, if you go from a sourcer to a senior sourcer to a lead sourcer, ultimately to a principal sourcer, the kinds of roles that you're supporting are going to become more complex, and your level of responsibility is going to be more complex. And so, there's going to be no easy requisitions for you to support, or your talent pipelining initiatives. And then obviously, director of sourcing, again, at that point, if you're a people leader and, you want to continue on your career path to take on more responsibility, to have, domain over all aspects of TA, right? Your recruitment marketing and branding, your sourcing element, your full life cycle recruiting element, your operations and analytics element, right? Like if that's your desire and career path, that's still that is absolutely a possibility for you. Just checking to see if there's any what certification experience needed for full life cycle to go into HR management. That's a really good question, and I'll get into that a little bit about what kinds of certification programs are out there, education, etc. Definitely been a big impact. It's had a big impact on my career. Let's see here. Okay, talent acquisition career path. Again, kind of the same thought process, right? Like I just wanted to kind of show, like these are what we commonly see as career paths in talent acquisition, right? So talent acquisition, go into senior, or you could change this out. It doesn't have to be talent acquisition. It could be recruiter, right? Like every company calls it something different. It could be a talent advisor. But at the end of the day, whether it's, I guess I should have framed this full life cycle career paths, right? This is kind of some of the common career path structure, but I do want to emphasize again that this is just kind of like if you are in a full life cycle desk. That doesn't mean that you can't go into sourcing. And I'll use myself as an example. My first two roles within talent acquisition were full life cycle, but because I developed a capacity as a sourcing SME while working full desk, I was given the opportunity to lead a team of dedicated sourcers. So, you have the ability to migrate. It depends on what your career interests are. Like I just thoroughly enjoyed the hunt. I enjoyed doing research, finding people, for roles that were difficult. Like that was gratifying to me. Like if you're like, hey, here's some high volume, like customer service representative positions. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm probably not going to be the person that you're going to want to assign that kind of role to. But if you say, hey, here's a role that we haven't been able to find someone in 6 months, see what you can do. I'm the person. Like, give that to me. So, I think some of this is also understanding like what you're good at, what you're passionate about, because the more passionate you are about something, the more that you're going to do the necessary things out of your sheer joy and love for what you're doing, that you're going to invest in the extra work that it does take to be successful. A lot of times people say, well, you have all these certifications. Well, there's a lot that went into getting certifications. I did a lot of studying on my own. And this is common for everyone that I know in the industry. Like a lot of sourcers, a lot of leaders, they do a lot of work on their own time. And I'm not saying that to be preachy. I'm saying that they do that because they're passionate about it. They enjoy their career path that they're on. So they do the necessary work to invest in their skill development that is truly necessary for them to be able to pivot to whatever, whatever their current role is, to make sure that they have the skills necessary to be successful now, or to whatever role that they're aspiring to be. And that's part of what has been integral to my career journey, has been, what have I been willing to do from 5 o'clock in the afternoons until 6 or 8, or maybe sometimes on the weekends, or like, what are the extra things I've been willing to invest in myself, whether it's networking with people, or it's actually been like a formalized training. And then obviously something that's probably a little bit newer that I think is important to talk about is talent analytics career path. Definitely we'll be talking about some AI stuff later on in the presentation, but I do think it's important, especially because we are seeing an evolution in the career path of the career path period of talent acquisition, where we are becoming more data driven, right? We are partners to the business, whether it's commercial, government contracting, healthcare, it doesn't matter. Hiring talent is becoming more difficult. And as a result of supply and demand dynamics, right? Shifting in the skills that are needed in order for high level roles to be supported, which is shifting some of the talent that we're going after. There is a high demand for high level technical roles, and there's just a discrepancy in the supply, even in industries like healthcare, that have a combination of high level providers as well as technical roles, or engineering, same thing, right? So it's like a double whammy there. Or in the clear space where you have supply chain issues when it comes to individuals who have clearances and et cetera. So having a capacity for understanding data, to understand talent migration patterns, understand like what are the key skills to be an advisor to the business, right? And this is like at the recruiter level, sourcer level, or at the enterprise level, when we're building out scalable talent attraction frameworks that we can deploy enterprise wide to be able to market, to be able to identify, to be able to create a user experience, strategy that will help us to be more successful with not only attracting the right talent, but be able to get them into the system and capture them fastly. So data analytics are going to play a big part of the evolution of talent acquisition, as I'm sure we all know. All right, so talent acquisition skills. So what is the market saying that we really need in order to be a talent acquisition professional? What are some of the talent acquisition skills that we need to have in place? So sourcing, data analysis, right? Human resources, sales and business development. That's actually a big part of what we do in recruiting and talent acquisition. Communication, social media proficiency, project management, process improvement, open source intelligence, negotiation, multitasking, market research and analysis, right? Technical acumen, at the ability to be agile, change management, client and stakeholder management, HR compliance and employment law. There's a lot of things that you have to be proficient at in talent acquisition, whether you're sourcing, whether you're recruitment marketing, whether you're full desk recruiter, whether you work for a staffing agency or you're in-house. There's a lot of things that you have to be proficient at in order to be a talent advisor in today's environment. And acquiring these skills, investing in the skill in attaining knowledge that you need in order to master these skills, are going to be essential to you in your development in your career. So I wanted to also show some data, right? So, previous slides were a lot about my experience, my understanding of industry, having worked in it for over a decade, and networking and my professional networks and hearing stories from peers and the environment, right? But I think it's important. Let's look at some data, right? So, I pulled using Lightcast, a report that showed what were the top skills that were identified in talent acquisition postings from January 2024 all the way up to July 2024. And this is for all levels, from like an associate level all the way up to VP executive levels, right? And so in talent acquisition as a whole, what I saw was, frequency and job posting is the darker, and frequency and profiles. So the profiles that are available out there, how many of us have these skills listed in our profiles, whether it's through LinkedIn or some other social media, website. So ATSs, talent acquisition, recruitment strategies, full cycle recruitment, talent sourcing. And one of the things that I think is interesting is for talent sourcing, it shows up uh, significantly more in the job postings than it does in the profiles of the people that are available, that are on the market. So I think this is the same thing with talent pipelining, right? And talent strategy. So what I'm inferring from here is that the business is communicating that, hey, our next evolution of need in terms of talent acquisition are individuals who have capabilities with talent strategy, uh, innovative techniques for talent pipelining, talent sourcing, and recruitment strategies, right? So this is important. So for those that are available or those that are interested in continuing their career path and developing into different aspects of talent acquisition, this is information that you can glean for this. Hey, how am I communicating, to my industry, my capability around talent sourcing or talent management, talent pipelining, and talent strategies in these areas. All right. Now, this is also something that I wanted to show. So these are like specialized skills. So overall, specialized skills, I wanted to kind of show based on the number of job postings and the number of available profiles, what percentage of profiles reflected that they had these skills. And based on the skill growth relative to the job market, what are the skills that are rapidly growing, meaning like the demand is increasing significantly. And you can see here talent management rapidly growing, marketing rapidly growing, employee onboarding, we don't necessarily, depending upon your role, that might be something that you would focus on. And then we'll keep going on here. Let's see here. Continuous improvement process, rapidly growing. Project management, rapidly growing. Recruitment tools, rapidly growing. Let's see here. Data analysis by 25%. This is just from January to July, right? So these are skills that employers are saying are most important to them. They're included in their job ads, and they're not necessarily being seen in the resumes and profiles of those that are on the market. Continuing on, top software skills. So the previous slides were for the top specialized skills. These are the top software skills. So obviously you'll see some of the usual, your LinkedIn recruiters, your Workdays, your HRIS systems. We're pretty good in across the industry letting people know of, what software, business systems skills that we have. But what I think is actually more interesting is, you'll see some of the lagging. If you have Taleo, that's a lagging skill. Let's see here. iSIMS rapidly growing. That's interesting. Let's go to the next slide. Next slide, I think, really has some good information that I think people will get some value out of. So obviously, Microsoft Office 365, SAP, rapidly growing, Power BI. Now we're starting to get into more business intelligence, Google Sheets, Salesforce, Tableau, business intelligence software. These are skills again that are rapidly growing. Even TikTok is a growing skill. Interesting. GitHub, same thing, right? Um, so that this is all information that can be useful in terms of, hey, where do I need to upskill, or what do I need to be communicating on my resume or my profile or my bio to prospective employers who are looking for talent acquisition professionals. But the big one that I wanted to show at the end here is generative AI. And this is not surprising to me, and I'm sure it's not surprising to anyone else. But this is something that I think is interesting because of the fact that it's growing, and I'm sure it's probably going to be in the next 6 months, it's going to be rapidly growing. But what's interesting about this and some of the previous slides that I've shown is the heavy emphasis on data analytic systems and platforms. And to me, what I've seen over the past, few years, but specifically over the last year and a half, is as talent, the pool of qualified talent has shrunk, and competition has become more fierce. It's becoming more pivotal than any other time that I've been in recruiting. That we, as talent advisors, continually understand how we can leverage data to help us have more informed decision making when it comes to crafting and executing a talent advisory strategy in terms of finding talent for our organization and developing processes that allow us to succeed, whether it's at a smaller organization or whether it's at a large scalable enterprise. Processes that we put into place, and really having the I would say the courageous audacity to challenge the norms in our organization. Talent is not just living on trees, and where people are begging for a job. The reality is we have to do a lot in order to come up with a qualified candidate for the positions that we are posting. And so we need to make sure that we're using data to help inform our business partners of what the reality looks like, whether it's from a salary perspective, whether it's from a supply and demand, whether it's from a, hey, here's what we're seeing from what people are looking for from a work-life balance perspective. All of this data is super important to be able to influence decisions that could determine whether or not you are able to successfully place someone in the roles that you're trying to find. So that's one aspect of it. Now, what are adjacent careers, right? So adjacent careers. What is there some careers, maybe, hey, maybe within talent acquisition, I feel like I kind of hit my ceiling and maybe I'm looking to kind of pivot to, what are some skills that I can take that I've crafted and developed over the past, X amount of years? Well, there's lots of opportunities. I mean, there really are. Talent management, HR generalists, business partners, sales. I came from sales and got into HR and TA. So yeah, it's vice versa. DE&I, business development and capture, social media. I know a lot of sourcers who are super technical that can write code. They can do some wonderful things. There's definitely opportunities that way. Open source analyst, background investigators. I mean, a lot of different things that you can do for adjacent career paths if you decide that, hey, you've done all that you wanted to do within talent acquisition. So what can I do with these skill sets that I have? How can I parlay those into other career paths that I think might be useful for me? And then I think I had someone that asked about professional development and networking. So I just wanted to share just a few like resources out there. There's tons more, but I'm a free believer in free. So I will tell you that lots of wonderful ways to learn. You can learn through going through vendors like Boolean Strings, Airs, SourceCon, TSI, Recruiter Academy. You can also stay in the know with talent acquisition and sourcing by keeping up on Recruit DC, SourceCon, Recruiting Daily, Social Talent. But a great way to continue to stay on top of professional development and networking, I would recommend, obviously YouTube is a great venue, LinkedIn, of course. But, I have met tons of people and continued networking and utilizing, social media for professional development. Facebook has been instrumental. Lots of Facebook groups on recruiters, Sorcerers Who Code, SourceCon, you name it. The bars. I'm not going to say what that acronym stands for, but some of you will probably know. There's tons of different, ways to meet individuals who are passionate about sourcing, talent acquisition, whether it's recruitment marketing, whether it's operations, whether it's sourcing, whether it's full life cycle, doesn't matter. So definitely check out some of these. Lots of LinkedIn groups. There's associations. There's ATAP, the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals. But when asked about speaking at RecruitCon, Daniel said, "Hey, want you to kind of talk about pivoting, and how are you able to pivot in your career? Where I was a individual contributor." And went from being an individual contributor to having the opportunity to lead teams, and learning how to lead teams on the fly, on the job, getting some bumps and bruises along the way, and eventually being able to continue to evolve in the middle management, and to where I'm at today as a director at Maximus. And a lot of it has to do with really building up a professional network of people that I created just through the sheer love and passion of, I'm in talent acquisition. This is something that I enjoy doing, and I want to know all there is to know about it, and not trying to sound preachy, but it truly that's what led me to joining Facebook groups and reaching out to people that I don't know, that I did not know at the time, and just asking questions like, "Hey, how do you find email addresses?" Hard to believe that that was a question I would ask back in 2015. But those like simple, just introducing myself and just going on the internet to say, "Hey, who's talking about sourcing and recruiting? Who's talking about this or that?" And then doing the research to find these networks and groups of people, pockets. Shannon Pritchett, when I first met her online, she was at SourceCon. She was an editor at SourceCon. And I met her for the first time back in 2017, and attending my first SourceCon event. But I did the research to find out who's talking about the things that I'm interested in and making my career path, right? And then from there, learning and then making connections. And then from that, I would not be in the position I'm in today, were it not from my passion and just saying, "Hey, this is what I want to do with my career. And I'm going to do everything I can to learn as much as I can about talent acquisition." And one thing really led to another. I met my current boss back in 2000, I think 16, 17, at a recruiting conference. And that person did not become my boss until 2022. I tell that not because I think it's anything on me. I share that because it just shows like the more you invest in your own development in your career and become passionate about it, you just don't know where those connections. It's the same thing as we talk about engaging people, a people person business, right? You don't know that every conversation you have with someone is going to lead to a placement, but you have the conversation because you want to make a connection. You see that there's some value in having this conversation, and then you just let life just kind of take it where it goes. And with that, I will share my last slide, which kind of succinctly covers what I hope has been the overarching message of today's topic, which is life is full of surprises and serendipity. Being open to unexpected turns in the road is an important part of success. If you try to plan every step You may miss those wonderful twists and turns. And that's said by Condoleezza Rice. And I'll leave you with that. And one final thought is part of success is just being prepared to take advantage of opportunity. And the reason why I wanted to show the certifications and the networking, all that, was because had I not invested in myself, I would not have been in position to take advantage of opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of when the opportunity presented itself. And with that, Daniel, that's it for me.
Well, that was fantastic. Any questions from the audience that you want to throw in the question and answer from this amazing session from Junius? Someone said, "Are you a son of a preacher man?"
No. But like I said, I did come from sales. So if you need someone to talk or fill up some space, I was at the end. I was filler space here, so I could do that.
You weren't filler. Hey, Junius, I have a question for you. If you were to embark on this journey again, what would you do this time that you didn't do the first time?
I'd probably just ask more questions. Be even more, like, just invest more in relationships, even more than I have.
How is that possible?
Well,
I know you. How is that possible?
I think there's just much more that you can learn from other people than you can learn from yourself. A lot of people know me. They know I'm pretty self-reliant, but as I've matured and had more roles, I've learned how important it is to really have a strong circle of support that you can really lean on, because you can learn more from others than you can just from yourself. No matter how much no matter how much you try to learn, right? And my team, I show them all the time all the books and stuff, right? And I don't show it to brag to them. I just share to say, hey, here's a book, a resource maybe you might want to leverage that can help you out in this particular area. But at the end of the day, some of the best advice or knowledge that I've gained has been through shared experiences with others that I've trusted. So